Now today in the shop, we finished up the custom wheel MT09 project. We got the tire mounted, the discs, all the peripheral hardware, got it balanced up, got out to the shop, and as we did, it started snowing. So we had to postpone our photo shoot a little bit. Not a big problem. We did get our photo shoot, and it'll be at the end of the video, of course. It was a very long day, but it was a day I was so happy to finish up this project. I have done 17 videos now, each one between 4 and 6 hours of shop work. You can do the math. It's on the bike now, and when I stood back and did the Photoshop, to be honest and put my hand on a Bible, I couldn't have been happier. That was exactly the look I had in my mind. Today, we're subject to the weather. It's supposed to snow this afternoon, a little noontime. I don't know. It's bright and sunny now, but it really is cold. So I'm itching to get inside, get this wheel assembled, get it installed, and if it's not raining or snowing, because we're right around freezing now, if it does present the opportunity to get a nice photo shoot, that would really work for me. I really want to see how this is going to look with that back wheel in silver. And then once this project is done, we're going to move on to right to the top of the priority list and start on our next project. Now the bed and breakfast is moving on, and I just can't wait to see how this is going to all play out with that wheel. And just hope it stays sunny until we can get this assembled and put on there. I really want to look at my computer and see a couple of ideas I have for the new windshield, the Evil Twin windshield. I don't know how that's going to play out, but I never do. That's the fun of doing this stuff. Every one of the bikes is a work in progress. They're never finished. If you finish them, you go for a ride and you get bored. You always have to have projects. And I heard this horrible thing that if you run out of projects, what happens is you look in a mirror one day and you get old. Oh my God, I better keep a lot of projects going. And every one of these projects, every one of these bikes that I've restored has been just a labor of love. And the MT09 is well on the way to being that right now. And after a quick cup of coffee and feeding the barnyard animals and doing all the chores we have to do around here, making pancakes, eating pancakes, whatever we have to do, I don't know. That'll be the project of the day, to get this all buttoned up. Oh my God, the birds are hungrier than I am this morning. Hey guys, we're going to have pancakes this morning, and you guys get the leftovers. And a bed and breakfast is serving hazelnut coffee with Karen's secret pancake recipe. And after a great breakfast, and thank you Karen for that. Oh, look at that wheel. Woo! Totally hand buffed. That is a work of art to me. Anybody that's ever done one of these knows that's a labor of love. The first step is very, very carefully removing the back mask. I don't want to have this peel up or have a rough edge. I want that edge to sit just perfect when I get all the bolts torqued down. Now these little knives are so handy, and I like to cut along the edge if possible because I don't want to have that edge be rough, and I don't want to have it where it pulls up some of the paint. So this is one of the things that's very, very delicate. And I've learned my lesson the hard way about pulling up back masking indiscriminately. This was just a very careful removing of the tape around the bearings and the seals. That little pointy knife with the breakaway blades is a big help. But when you rush this and just rip the tape up, it's really high risk. Now with all the back masking up, I'm going to take some Sikkens M600 and just clean these surfaces. I've scraped them with the knife already, just to get any residual stuff off. I want that to be a perfect fit when that disc goes on there, and of course the ring that goes on there, the ABS ring. Now it's real important to keep those surfaces clean, no big globs of paint or any defects there. That's going to be a very tight match between the discs. I flipped it, I got the back masking off the other side around the bearing. I had to take care of getting it on a wheel stand so I could pull the back masking off the center of the wheel. But again, all of this stuff I did very, very slowly. You see this is in extreme fast forward here, but I don't want to just rip this up. I don't want to take a chance on getting any defects in the paint. So far at this point, there's not one defect in that paint that I can find anyway.
And at the end of this, when I'm ready to start mounting the tire, I want to start with a wheel that's as clean as I can make it. All the steps necessary to get the tire mounted. I'd have the Schrader valve, the curvy girl taken apart, and that's, of course, it makes seating the tire on the rim a lot easier. And I always love to deal with Curvy Girl. They're great people. Julie down at Curvy Girl will send you one of those shirts if you buy enough valves. And we want to take out the bolt. That's the bolt that matches up perfectly to the head of the Curvy Girl. It's a good idea to put some Windex. It's a good idea to chamfer that edge. If you have a razor edge on there, I use this tool just to chamfer it a little bit. A little bit of Windex, a little bit of soap, anything on there. Well, even I guess you could use the stuff that you mount the tire with. You don't want to tear that little seal on the Curvy Girl up. That's a no-no. Now, I have a special wrench that I ground down so that I could get that into the Yamaha wheels. I know every bike has a different situation for putting these Schrader valves in. You see how tight that is? A normal wrench won't get in there and tighten that up. Of course, you don't want to over tighten it, just a little bit tighter than hand tight. I keep all my spare parts for working on tires in one area. I'm checking this out. Yeah, that's just about perfect. I always have it facing the side opposite the kickstand, just because it's easier for me. We're doing an ongoing test. Here's the original tire with, you can see where the bars are here, and you can see the brand new tire. And we're going to be reporting on the mileage. The mileage is really good now, and that tire is really sticky, those Michelin 5s. The dot, the jury is out on this. Some have dots and some don't. And Bob Nivola, thank you for donating. The late Bob Nivola donated that to our cause many years ago, and we've used it. And these are the tires. I wanted to take a picture of that sticker for anybody interested before I pull the stickers off. So the key to mounting any tire, the big thing, and it's the big elephant in the room, is to get the tire warm. Well, I've had this up by heating vent, but unfortunately, I wish it were warmer. Makes it easier, but when you use the Gorilla Tape method, sometimes you got to heat it, the hair dryer. But nothing's better than just mounting it on a warm day and leaving it out in the sun. But unfortunately, today that's not going to happen. Not when it's 35 degrees out there. So now the thing is, I want to make sure the rotation is correct, and I want to get Gorilla Tape on 4, 12, 6, 3, and 9. Then I'm going to use that lube, and this was donated by Bob Nivola. Again, I've mentioned that every time. God, the late Bob Nivola, and God, Bob, did we miss you? Every time I mount the tire, I think of Bob. And this is just there's many ways to do this. I've shown many ways on the video channel, but it's always, if a tire is even slightly warm, usually the Gorilla Tape will make it relatively simple. Now, the rules of engagement are the wider tires and wider rims mount up a lot easier than narrow tires. Like a GS front tire, a 19-inch tire, is a bear to mount. These usually go on pretty well, and when they don't, it's only because you don't have the tire warm enough. So I always start with this as ordinary Gorilla Tape. I get the pieces stripped off, because the whole idea of this is, once you get these on, is to mach schnell, get it going. You need 4 pieces. And a lot of times, if you're in doubt, put a 5th piece up, because if you get one all tangled up and snarled up, you don't want to sit there for 15 minutes tearing up another piece. Sometimes we're lucky doing this. I've had it that the tire on a warm summer day, and the tire's out in the driveway on a black mat or on a hood of my black car, the tire almost went on by itself. Sometimes when it's cold, now it's about 65 degrees in the shop, and so this now becomes, you notice I took the extra piece too. Okay, so the trick is, and it's important, not to get the tape down into where this is going to mount. So I want to mount it pretty much off of that. I want to get it to stick pretty good here, because otherwise it's just going to jump up. I want to pull this off the table, make this go right to the very end, and now using my substantial body weight, and I want to do that 4 times.
Now I want to double check that I have the rotation correct, and in my case I've already pre-done this in my mind. I know the arrow's going that way. Okay, so that's ready. Now I've got to take the tire lube, and again, it's Dawn soap seems to work almost as good. You don't really need a lot of this. This is only going to go on. You actually don't even need to do the back of the tire. It's the front. And since this one has no red marks where the heavy spot is, that's funny with the Michelin thing. If you go to the website, they tell you that they don't put red dots on the tire. They reject them. And then you buy a tire and it's got a red dot on it. So, yeah, I don't know. But the Michelin tires mount up pretty easy. It's a soft carcass tire as opposed to the Dunlops. I'll put some of this on the rim too. The whole trick is if these are not tight, if they start loosening up, just redo it. You'd like to have it as tight as possible, of course. Get some of this on every corner. Okay, so that one was a little tougher than the one we did before, but it just takes a little effort. And I want to get as much of this lube off before I pop the tape. So I'll get a clean rag and clean as much of it up as I can. Just don't want to have it on my new wheel. Get that out, and you could leave it in there, I guess, but to me, no point leaving it in if I don't have to. Clean that up. I like everything clean. Now the trick is to get the tape off without leaving any inside the rim. That's the whole thing in a nutshell. And this can sometimes, let me get this. Sometimes this can be you get this stuff on your hands and you can't get a grip on anything. But sometimes this becomes a real problem. If you leave a piece in there, you've got to then get the tire to sit down and pull it out. So I've found, after doing this a few times, I've found that if you do it this way, it kind of is the easiest of all worlds. If you get the part, you got to have your hands ready. If you pull this up, okay, get that loose. Now, if I have I gotta get a screwdriver here. If I can get this piece to come up, see this little tab? Now this is the whole trick in a nutshell, and everything in life is a trick. Now, if I pull it out over the end of the table and I go, comes out in one piece. And obviously we got to take all four of them out. Okay, now for the sound we love. Do you hear that beads pop? Come on, guys. Oh, here we go. Here we go. It doesn't take long. Hey! Oh, I've been shot. I've been shot. Oh! Been shot with 2 bullets. Okay, once we release this, put the Schrader valve in, and then we'll do the leak check. Okay, now the whole idea of doing this with Gorilla Tape, and the whole idea why I cut the tires off, I don't take them off with tools, the whole idea of everything is I don't scratch the rim or damage it even a little bit. Now, to be honest, truth in advertising, this is a potential scratch the rim tool. So when you're putting the Schrader valve in, what I tend to do is just go real conservatively, and that if you're not careful, that can really put a scratch in, and it's very annoying. You got to either buff it out, or sometimes you can't buff it out. Anyway, we've gotten to this point, and the Gorilla Tape method is always a good way to do it. Now what I'm going to do is put in 50 pounds of air, let it sit overnight, and if it's 50 tomorrow morning, we could ride the bike. Now I like to do everything in sequence. I have a sequence that I've always done this for many years, and it's worked well for me. It's a little bit overcautious of what maybe you have to do.
And I always like to have, now if this were the summer and I was going to ride this bike today, I'd probably take a chance if I don't see any bubbles. But I always like to, if I have a choice, let this sit overnight with 50 pounds of air before I actually go and ride the bike. Now, it looks like that's seated up pretty nice. I don't see any bubbles at all. Let's go around the valve. By the way, the Curvy Girls have been absolutely perfect for track days and street riding for forever. And if you get friendly with Julie down there, buy enough valves, they send you one of those cool t-shirts with the with their stripper or whatever she is on there. Anyway, yeah, this looks good. Now I'll do the other side. And yeah, I always like that. But if I see a bubble, it almost always will be that I left a little bit of the tape in there by mistake. All right, both sides are good. The valve is good. And we're ready to mount up the discs. Let me just clean this off. This is why I put the carnauba wax on after I buffed out the rim. I can clean this all up now. And the discs, in this case is only one disc. The disc and that ring are the next thing. Now when I bolt back on the disc, I want to make sure both of the surfaces are immaculately clean. And I'm blue Loctiting the bolts. And at the end of it, I'll torque them down to factory spec in a star pattern. Now when we took these bolts out, they had red Loctite on them. What I'm thinking is, and I'm probably more right than wrong about this, is the red Loctite is there as a CYA for Yamaha, so they don't wind up that somebody says my disc came loose after 100,000 miles, and I never checked the bike or wiped it off, but now Yamaha's responsible, because the reality is that's the world we live in. And for sure, there's a certain amount of people that don't check anything. They just think it's going to last forever. Well, I kind of think I like to check things a little more often than most people, especially tire pressure, because I know how you go out on a track and you're 2 or 3 pounds low, you could feel it right away. Maybe not on the street so much, but even so, the roads I ride on are slippery, and when that traction control kicks in, and on the MT09 on this bike, that traction control is kicking in on those salty roads. And it's these tires, the beauty of these tires is on a step out or on a loss of traction, it's very predictable. Where some tires, they grip right to the end and then you go, these are they give you a nice little warning, especially on those salty roads. So now, of course, these bolts are Loctited in, and I tighten them with a wrench, always in a star pattern. I just repeat this over and over. And then I have my good Craftsman torque wrench. This is a high quality wrench. And by the way, I have the Harbor Freight one, and they seem to be very similar, but I always trust the Craftsman. And I wanted to clean the hubs and clean everything up before I mount it with brake parts cleaner, and just give it a final wipe, get it cleaned, and we're pretty much ready with that side. Okay, all the surfaces are perfectly clean. And this little guy has an A on one side, and when it came off, the A was on the outside, so I thought, I don't know if that means anything, because I'm not an electronic guru with this stuff, but I do know we get a little drop of Loctite on these, and these were the ones, these had yellow Loctite on them. I don't know if they were really a bear to get out, so I don't know if that's a CYA or what. And you do need a special wrench to get these in and out, and luckily for me, I had that. Now these are that special star screw. I don't know what the correct term for it is, but you can use an Allen wrench just to get them started, but you've got to do the torquing with a correct wrench, or else what's going to happen, you're going to booger up the screw, and if that screw strips out of the wheel, you're going to have a problem. Now when I took this all apart, I polished all the heads of the bolts. This is a part, torquing this down, and this is a part that really does a lot of work. This would be one of the things I wouldn't really want to get loose at some future time when you're not waiting for it. But anyway, the torque wrench, the Craftsman torque wrench, is really accurate. You just do it up to factory specs. At the end of it, again, I want to wipe that with brake part cleaner, keep that all clean. I don't want to put that on and have fingerprints and grease all over it. And it's this side of the wheel now is done.
Not like it would really matter, but I'll take these stickers off anyway. And always the moment of truth, and I never really know who to believe about balancing, because I've heard so many people, I've heard people say, I paid so much to have my things high-speed balanced and everything, and they still have a vibration issue. I don't know. But this one looks like it's pretty decent. I just let it stop. Well, if it's out of balance, it's not out of balance by much, and that's a typical thing of Michelin's, and they're not too bad. Very, very slight, very slight. When they're this close, I don't bother even putting weights on them, because as soon as you do a couple of a couple of 100 miles, it's going to change anyway. You're going to wear off all the little edges of the tire. Yeah, that looks pretty good.
Now we're ready to put the Cush drive back. Notice how well this is engineered. The side that would be on acceleration or power has more cushioning than the deceleration side. I'm sure Yamaha did a great job engineering that up. This hub is such a nice tight fit too. At the end, you really need to just tap it in with a rubber. Now a good tip is put some soap on those rubber biscuits that are in there. The big side goes toward the, obviously toward the acceleration side. But this can be a really tight fit, and I want to make sure it's bottomed out nice and neatly. Okay, we're ready to put the sprocket on, and that's a real nice advantage, because what happens when you put the bike back together, this thing doesn't fall out like it does on some bikes. Okay, we've got our sprocket, and let's just get this put in place. A little bit of blue Loctite, and these are special self-locking nuts anyway if you didn't put blue Loctite, but I still think probably it's an advantage to do it that way. Anyway, these get torqued down, of course, factory spec, and then we'll be ready to get outside. And of course, you can't make this up. I just went out to the garage to get the rubber hammer to tap that down, and it's snowing already. There's just a few flakes. They said it was going to snow today in the afternoon, and so I may not get a photo shoot, but at least we'll get this put back together, that's for sure. And the temperature, rather than getting warmer and nice today, it was nice this morning. It was above freezing. I don't think it's above freezing now. But that's the unpredictableness of everything that we do. Everything we do is subject to the weather. We're slaves of the weather. Now, at the sprocket mounted, we're coming down a home stretch, and I'm monitoring the weather hour by hour, and hopefully it's going to stop. And it's not really snowing that hard, but I don't want to take the bikes out and get them all wet, and I could rather wait for a sunny day, but we'll see. Now, a job like this, I think one of the things you can really pick from the video, and I try so carefully not to leave out steps. I know some of the videos get a little long and boring, but I don't want to leave out a step, and it's the sequence. The sequence of doing this, and a good example is to put this in a vise and try to get these bolts off is murder. If you leave the tire on, it makes it so much easier. It's the same thing with the discs. The sequencing of things, if you can pick it right off the video and make a list, anything you're doing with a tire, a rim, a wheel, it'll just be so much easier. And that Gorilla Tape method, unless you like to go to a dealer, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but this works very well for me, and I really treasure those rims not getting beat up. And there's just enough snow that I don't want to take the bike out of the garage and get it all wet. Hey, this is my baby MT09. Anyway, we will get out there and install that wheel, but first we're going to have another cup of coffee. That'll make installing the tire that much easy. Extra coffee. Oh, it won't be long now. It is really getting nasty out here. Oh man, cold. Now, every time I work on any of the bikes, I always think it's number one, there's always these little bushings that have to go in each side, and a little bit of wheel bearing grease seems to be a good way to keep them in place while you're getting here. I'm hooking up the chain. Step one is always to get the chain on, get the wheel as far forward as possible, hook up the chain. There's on an MT09, there's the part that holds the caliper, and you can use a zip tie on that to hold it in place once you get it in the slot. That's a good little trick. If you don't have a helper, of course, if you have a helper, then it's easier, a lot easier.
Now, the thing that makes this just a little bit easier, since this piece wants to rattle around, if I just zip tie it in place once I have that slot there, it just makes getting the axle in a one-man job. If you have a helper, that's even better. Of course, all the blocks have to go back in exactly the same way. And then we're going to have to, probably have to adjust the chain, I'm not sure.
Yep, it's handy to be laying on cold concrete right now. A rug is great.
And again, that sensor is really, really delicate, I know that. So everything seems to have just bolted back up just the way it should. It looks like the sun is coming out, it stopped snowing, and that's in our favor. And all we have left to do are the 2 bolts, and these we'll be ready to do some photos. But one of the things that's nice to know is if you get the back bolt in first, and then you drop the caliper forward, you got to make sure that the pads, they're resting in these little copper clips that keep, I guess they're anti-rattle clips or whatever they are. And once that bolt is just hand tight, not even hand tight, then you can get the front one in. That just makes it a little easier, and never stress this wire. Just don't pull on it. Just make wherever it wants to go, just let it sit there. There's plenty of little connectors and things that hold it in place, and I wouldn't tinker with that wire. I know that wire is a couple $100. And one final thing is just to make sure we're exactly where we want on the chain adjustment, and that worked out perfectly. And I'm going to put a little chain loop on this, just so the back sprocket gets dirty right away. Oh boy. Hey, that went together pretty well. It's a little tricky getting this back end together. A couple little tips. I hope I've not left any of them out.
Now, the product I like for lubing the chain is called Chain Wax, and it's available on Amazon. You get it by a case, it's a lot cheaper.
In the end, and I always think, and no matter what I invest in this bike, for every reason possible, is a keeper. So I just look at it like it's a great investment, and because the sun just came out, I'm hoping I can get some nice photos. I'm going to try to do a nice little photo shoot so I can plan the next step on this. Whatever it is we're doing here, I don't know if it's a custom job or a, can't be a restoration. It's only 1.5 years old. Maybe it is a restoration, I don't know. Whatever it is, I'm enjoying the hell out of it. It is the first time I'm getting to see it with the silver wheels. And I'll click off as many pictures as I can here before it starts snowing again. But every part of this, the wheels, the front wheel and the back wheel, was 16 work sessions. Here comes the sun. Wow. I just got to stand back and enjoy it. Let the sun shine in.
So anytime I do a photo shoot, the objective is very simple. I want to get the bike from every possible angle. I'd like to get it, and today just worked out perfectly. The sun came out. The little bit of snowflakes we had stopped. There was no chance of rain because the sun was out. So it was very convenient to get the bike out and get it in a lot of different positions, get it with different backgrounds. Now, I always notice that when I sit down by my computer, usually it's late at night, and I'll just be looking at this with an eye toward, well, what can I do next? Now, I know the wheels worked out better than I ever could have expected. That was a perfect thing. 17 work sessions, 4 to 6 hours each. You figure the math again. But as I look at it now I have it under controlled conditions. I can zoom in. I can make the photos darker or lighter. It just makes it, here the sun came out right when it should, right? I was trying to get this from every possible angle. Because what happens, a lot of times you make a modification to the bike, it looks good from one angle, but then when you look from another angle, it looks, I could change that a little bit. Now, the next thing on my agenda is to make that evil twin windshield. And I want to have a little bit different look because somewhere down the road, I'm going to want to change this. I have a blue fender for when I want an evil twin to spike out. And I have a spare windshield, which we're going to probably fool around with in the next couple of days. I want to finish up Luciano's tank. But it's the windshield that made the biggest change to the bike except for the wheels. And I was so unhappy with some of the other choices that when I looked online and I saw what it didn't work for me. Now I have a certain look in my mind for the bike, and it's not super radical. I'm not trying to make something crazy out of it. I just want it to be like a very clean looking, it has that sophisticated look like the R1 does. The silver and blue really work for me. I really like that combination, especially when the sun is shining, like right here. When the sun is shining down on that silver and blue, I just think it's outstanding. Now, just like the Ducati people like their red, and needless to say, the Suzuki Racing Blue is a little bit different, but that's another nice color. Or the Kawasaki Green that we're painting for Luciano right now. Every bike has its own identity. Now, this identity, when I make the modified windshield, and again, I've thought about it long and hard, I don't know if I'm going to like it. But if I don't like it, the whole idea of all evil twins is just put the other part back on. And I'll explain that when we get to start cutting and shaping and doing the stuff that we're going to do. But it's all, anything that I like to do at this point, I want to do it, but I want to be able to undo it if I don't like it, or if I get bored, or whatever. I don't want to make permanent changes to the bike. That's the bottom line. An example is, and thank you, Vlad, for getting me those carbon fiber parts. The front fender being carbon fiber with the paint trim, I like it. I might even add some silver trim to that in the future. I don't know. But it's an ongoing thing. And I still have the original fender that I can paint blue. Because I like the look of the more blue I have on the bike. Every time I've painted something blue, I like it more than with the godforsaken flat black, which I don't know. Now, the exception to that is the rim around the headlight. When John Pothier, and thank you, John, for all your help, did me up some Photoshops with that piece around the headlight lenses painted blue, I didn't care for it. That was that one piece that put it over the edge, and I said, oh, too much. The lettering, and thank you again to John, that was just super, super, super. Now, he even did a Photoshop of Stefan's MT09 and sent it to Stefan. Why do I want to say Austria? It's Romania. Anyway, my apologies. That logo alone changes the look of the bike. Painting the radiator side covers changes the look of the bike. And they all do it in subtle ways, not in a big aggressive, something that changes the bike. The whole objective is to keep it an MT09. The clock worked out great on that carbon fiber little dashboard I made. Now, the tail section of the bike, again, made a big change. The scoops, and Turbo Steve thought they'd look good silver like a VMAX. John and I talked about making them black. But in the end, I thought the blue was the way to go. And the person that made the final decision was Karen. Karen, by the way, had the final decision on making the wheels silver and not some other color. And I like the silver wheels. It's the color. In real life, it doesn't look chrome. It doesn't look like something I didn't want it to look like. It has exactly the look I was looking for all along. So today is one of those days that we really got everything done we wanted to. I can't wait to go look at those pictures on the computer. And the next thing on my project list is going to be to come up with some design or some paint work or something fancy, something we can make an evil twin windshield out. But until then, hey, the computer having those pictures with the two silver wheels, doesn't matter how much it snows or rains, I can look at those pictures and dream. So I hope you did enjoy sharing the video, sharing this adventure. 17 videos long for anybody that toughed it out and watched every one of them. You can imagine how much work I put into it. You get a real idea. And a lot of it's in fast forward too. But anyway, this is a wonderful evening for me to be editing the video and looking around and looking at those pictures. I have the same feeling I had when I finished the R1 wheels or the 750 wheels. A real genuine sense of accomplishment, and a sense of that I've made the bike better and I've gotten the look I was after. And I post something up every day, and I hope you enjoy sharing this adventure with us. So if you enjoyed the video, I hope you share it with your friends. And of course, I hope, most of all, that we'll see you tomorrow. And thanks again for watching.